You know those moments when you have an aha, an insight, like, oh, that's what's going on, or oh, that's what I'm doing. And then you decide, that's not good enough anymore, and you try something new. And when you try it, at first you feel liberated. Oh my God, that feels so good to do that. You feel free, a sense of freedom. And then you might have a little twinge of buyer's remorse or guilt, like, that felt so good, but is that bad that felt so good? Oh gosh, am I being a bitch by doing that, by setting a boundary? Well, what's happening there is that that moment where you feel liberation is you reconciling something that was in opposition. So I'm Dr. Deborah Lukovich, the author of When Sex Meets God, a Midlife Unraveling. And today I want to share a little bit about chapter 6 because it gets at this part of Jungian theory. And Carl Jung had term he called the Transcendent Third. So he would say that every day as we're growing, unless we're not, we're dying, every day our growth comes from reconciling things that are perceived to be in opposition. Now, in the end, they're not really in opposition, but there's something about our identity and our core beliefs, which are mostly limiting, that has stood in the way of two things really coexisting together. Two beliefs, for example. Like, for example, I'll share an example. At a certain part of my marriage, I recognized during one kind of communication or topic of conversation, for example, there was a little passive aggressiveness happening with my former husband, and I never saw it, and because of a belief I had about myself. So in the moment when I recognized it, and inside I was like, oh my God, this is it. Oh, I see it now. I see that when I'm asking for help, that the conversation turns back to my former husband who would say, well, I'm helping. And then because of a parental complex I had, oh, there's my cat Langley, that I would then tend to his, wounded ego instead of maintaining, no, but I want help right now, or I need something right now. And so one day I just thought, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to do the opposite of what I usually do, which is so what I usually try to do is talk myself out of something or talk myself into it or try to be understood or overcome a misunderstanding. And instead, I just said, okay, I'm leaving. I didn't know what else to do. So, what I felt though at setting that boundary and not engaging in the usual dynamic, I felt liberated. Wow, I just walked away. I didn't have to clarify and, clarify that I didn't mean to hurt his feelings or whatever it was. But then I felt buyer's remorse. Then I was like, oh my God, that feels so wrong. So the right thing can actually feel wrong. Now, in the end, then I had to bring those two things together. And this is this transcendent third where both things can be true. I didn't have to choose one or the other. So that's the Jungian concept I want to share today is that every day when there's stress and there's anxiety, there's something at odds inside you. And the work is not to just try to, relieve the anxiety, those feelings. The work is to what is really bothering you inside? What is the deeper truth that maybe you're avoiding knowing and dealing with because it will be really hard. So I want to just read a little bit. This is a longer snippet than I read in other videos, but this chapter is titled The Clash of Convention and Liberation. It was early June, 2 weeks before my 24th birthday. In the 6 years since embarking on my journey into adulthood, I tested my associate degree by working as a legal secretary for 18 months. That experience, combined with my time as a server at a mid level country club, jolted me into an awareness of classism, racism, sexism, all of it. Witnessing the horrifying emotional abuse suffered by a fellow secretary at the hands of her lawyer boss during the day and by her husband in front of their two sons during the carpool rides to work paralyzed me with disbelief. That's just one example of what I observed. Soon, anger toward men and guilt about not having the courage to stand up to them on behalf of those women took deep root in my psyche. The bitterness beneath the surface fueled my determination to be the first in my family to pursue a 4-year college degree. Getting accepted was the easy part. I panicked about how I would pay for the private university tuition, but I believed my sister when she said, "You'll figure it out." My sister was right. My new part time job as a legal secretary at a more enlightened law firm provided more than just a paycheck. Carefully observing how young attorneys dressed and interacted shaped my vision of myself for the future. Engaging in casual conversations during happy hours helped me adjust to this unfamiliar world. Fake it till you make it became my mantra. My mind chose the esteemed Jesuit university for its business program. However, by the end of my sophomore year, my inner moral compass detected a troubling secondary agenda. The suppression of ideas was palpable, as were the outrageous dictates preventing professors from discussing specific topics, such as concerns about global population growth. I felt as if I were in a dystopian movie, sitting in class, my eyes unable to blink as I listened to my theology professor explain in the most serious tone that pain in childbirth was women's punishment for biblical Eve's audacity to become aware of good and evil. I felt disdain for the professors who refused to engage with me after class due to their fragile beliefs. During one class on the intersection of sexism and racism, we were discussing Anita Hill's testimony against U.S. Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas. I shook my head in disbelief and I wanted to slap my forehead when young women said, "Why didn't she say something back then?" The ignorance was jarring. Just a few years earlier, it had been entirely legal for a woman to be fired if she didn't allow her boss to fuck her. Something fierce awakened in me, fueled by a deep connection to the collective rage simmering beneath the surface after centuries of repressing women's natural urges. Nothing could divert me from my unwavering commitment to enhance my critical thinking skills and embrace feminist and other critical theories on topics ranging from law to theology to economics. Like the character Alita in the film Alita Battle Angel, who declared, "I will not stand by in the presence of evil," I was determined to become adept at confronting injustice in whatever sinister form it took. On the other hand, I was just as serious about having fun. One Friday night after work, my sister and I went to the Irish pub downtown by the river. We swaggered through the door in short skirts and sleeveless tops, giggling and scanning the crowd for attractive men. I noticed one of the younger lawyers from my firm standing at the bar. He was tall, dark-haired, and handsome, still in his suit. "Hey, Deb, can I buy you two a drink?" "Sure, this is my sister," I flirted with the lawyer. "This is my brother, Jeremy." He gestured toward the smiling man beside him. And I won't tell you what happens after that, but that just sort of, explains that you'll see this tension inside me between um, my desire for justice and also this sort of other part of me. So I get irritated with men, and yet there's this attraction to men. So I also love to include in these videos a question. And I didn't really ask one in the beginning, but I described these, every day our stress and our anxiety has to do with our things at odds inside of us. And sometimes we think the problem is outside, but it's really inside. And if we can get at what is at odds inside of us and we can hold the tension between those two, eventually we will reconcile it in some way, and then we'll know how to take action in the external world. So, in the comments, if you could share like a past experience of you didn't realize what was in opposition, and then eventually you did, and then you had to take action because of the truth of the situation, or something that you sense right now that is trying to bubble up to the surface, and maybe you're not ready for it or you're afraid of it. And yeah, that's what I wanted to share about this particular chapter. This is my book. If you go to deborahlukovich.com, you'll see it right on my homepage. And there's a link to see all the lovely reviews on amazon.com. And also, it's available on bookshop.org if you're looking for an alternative to Amazon. And subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm teaching concepts as I'm trying to get people to read this story, because it's a subjective experience of a universal journey that many people are following. And I use my own story to encourage you to dive into your vulnerable unconscious so that you can get to the other side with some expanded consciousness. So that's it. Until next time in the next chapter. Take care.